What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Dr. Mike Axler here, PhD in kinesiology and applied physiology, professor of exercise science, and 60 plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner. As we always do, let me start out with a couple of questions. And hands up, how many of you have reached a plateau in your training? Maybe it's in your running pace, your running times, the amount that you're lifting for reps, for sets, for absolute weight. Do you feel kind of groggy and almost like you're spinning your wheels in your training? And further on this, do you think that this has to do something more along the lines of your programming, like you're going too hard every day, or you're doing the same program over and over and over? Or do you think that maybe it is something to do with your ability to recover? So I think that this is perfectly okay and even expected, because when you go from the beginner stages onto like the intermediate stages of literally any skill, any hobby, even like strength training, your fitness level, you're going to have these enormous incremental gains in your progress. And you're going to hit this plateau point for a long time before like inevitably kind of creeping up a little bit to go from intermediate to advanced. So you can think of this in terms of like, I don't know, tying your shoes, riding a bike, learning a language, lifting weights. There was like this enormous progress followed by this crazy plateau. And then like when you became like maybe better at it, it took years and years and years, but a lot of people plateau, and that's completely fine. So with respect to your health and fitness and all of your strength goals, your endurance goals, whatever it is, because you're watching this channel, let's talk about fatigue management and how we can really manage and mitigate the fatigue so we can continue to progress day to day, week to week, year to year. And today we will be talking about sleep, not only in terms of quality sleep, but also quantity. We'll also be discussing training loads, so we need to think in terms of volume, intensity, and frequency of your training. Nutrition, like my favorite topic, and we'll talk a whole lot about this in other videos. And I already have a ton of videos on muscle protein synthesis and setting up a diet specifically for athletes pre, intra, and post. So go ahead and watch those. But we need to think in terms of, are you eating enough calories? Are you eating enough high quality protein? Are you nailing down your micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, which are going to give you all of your antioxidants? Are you staying hydrated through your workout, after your workout, and throughout the day? There is a lot that we can discuss with nutrition in regard to, are you recovering well in between sessions? And the last one, which is incredibly important, which all goes into this fatigue management model, is going to be stress. Both work stress as well as life stress, because that is all cumulative stress that can really hinder your workouts. So today we will be deep diving into all of this. If that does sound interesting, please continue to watch and or listen. So number one, let's first begin today talking about sleep debt and performance. Sleep debt is exactly how it sounds. If you think about financial debt is spending more money than you're taking in. You are at a loss. Sleep debt is the exact same thing. You need to be sleeping 7 to 9 hours per night, but you're only getting like 4 or 5 or 6, so you're below the mark. Are you not getting your 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep? And do you demand caffeine of yourself throughout the day just to get out of bed? If you are, you're probably in sleep debt. If you cannot focus, if you're groggy, if you're cranky without caffeine, if you find yourself falling asleep during regular daily activities, again, you're probably sleep deprived. So the reason why we're talking about sleep debt, what I want to bring up here today is that sleep debt is cumulative. So you can have one bad night of sleep if you got a stuffy nose, or you're out late, you got to wake up early, or you have like an annoying loud neighbor playing music. That's okay if you get one bad night of sleep, but getting even like 1 or 2 less hours of sleep than you would need over the course of days, weeks, and months, that cumulative sleep debt and fatigue really mounts up, such that you can have huge cognitive and physical declines. You start to feel that like tickle in the back of your throat, you feel a little bit of a sniffle, and you know you're getting sick. We need to be sleeping. So as we had said, sleep debt is cumulative, and even small deficits can really impair things like reaction time, force output, and decision-making abilities. And while this was specifically studied in athletes, and we used to do this a lot during my master's, we did a lot with like reaction time, decision-making ability, and even like 1 foot and 2 foot balance after 12 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours of sleep deprivation. And while you might not notice decreases in reaction time and decision-making ability, in athletes who might try to be hitting or catching a 90-mile-an-hour curveball, your reaction time and your decision-making abilities are really important. So the big thing here with sleep debt and performance is that athletes need 7 to 9 hours of sleep consistently, but also so do we. Yes, athletes work really hard at their craft, at their sport, at their activity, their physical performance, but so do we. We might not be in the gym. I don't know, I work out 2 or 3 times a day, but maybe you do as well. But the average person who has a family, a life, and they're sitting in traffic and they have X, Y, and Z things to do, a lot of the times 5 and 6 hours of sleep just isn't going to cut it. And the main thing is you can't really catch up on the weekends. You kind of can, but it's not really going to be all that great. And there is a lot of research out there to show that night shift workers, so anyone who's doing like 12-hour day shifts followed by a 12-hour night shift, maybe you do a 24-hour shift, so a lot of healthcare workers, night shift workers, nurses, doctors, PAs, people who do these like crazy schedules, they are predisposing themselves to various cardiometabolic issues like heart attack, stroke, a lot of thyroid issue, pulmonary embolism, depression, anxiety, and much more. The main thing is that we need to be hooked up to the sun such that serotonin is going to be higher in the daytime, and then at nighttime, melatonin is going to be higher. So we're supposed to be awake in the daytime and asleep in the nighttime. Obviously, not every job, not every career is going to support that, but I just want to give you some actual physiological context for sleep debt and performance. The next issue that you might be dealing with respect to plateaued growth and recovery is training load versus recovery capacity. More training does not necessarily equal more gains in your athletic performance if recovery doesn't match. If you look at it this way, anyone can recover from an ultra marathon if given a long enough time horizon. Or look on your Apple Watch data and you can see, I walked, 4 miles a day in the month of June, and you look at like how many miles that is over the course of the month, you're like, wow, I walked 120 miles over the month of June and I barely feel it. It's like, yeah, you can completely recover from 120 miles of walking, maybe not in 1 day or 2 days, but over the course of the month, yes, absolutely. So we need to look at things like training load, the absolute intensity, frequency, and duration, and the duration of our training. So a fair question to ask would be, what tools can you use today in order to look at things like your training load and your recovery capacity, which is going to lead us into our next section. And the 3 big ones which we'll deal, number 1 is going to be RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, and soreness. And since this is subjective, I'm going to kind of get this one out of the way first before doing a separate section on heart rate variability, or HRV, as well as sleep tracking, and the last 2 being objective measures. Number 1, RPE and soreness, or rating of perceived exertion and soreness. You could put it this way. If following a workout, whether it's a run, a walk, a bike, or some lifting session, if your legs and your arms and your abs and your lower back and your shoulders, if they're still really sore more than 2 or 3 days after your workout, and or you feel like your immune system is starting to hurt and you're starting to get sick, you start to have the sniffles, you have like a decreased motivation to train, you probably need a day off or two, a little bit more nutrition in the way of higher quality protein and more calories, as well as just more time to sleep. So that's really just like the subjective, am I feeling okay to train? And this is not like, oh, I just feel lazy, I don't want to get off the couch. This is like, no, I am still very, very, very sore after 2 or 3 days of training. That's subjective RPE and soreness. Now let's look at HRV and sleep tracking. Alrighty, so maybe you have heard of HRV or heart rate variability in the past, and this is a line of research which really started to gain traction in like 2017, 2018, 2019, so it is still relatively new. And heart rate variability is a measure of autonomic readiness, meaning we want to have a higher HRV as opposed to a lower HRV. When we have a higher heart rate variability, this is indicative of strong parasympathetic activity, which means you're recovered. If you are right now to look at like your Apple Watch or your Fitbit or like a Whoop or some other heart rate monitor, you'd see your heart rate at some certain beats per minute. Let's just say 60 beats per minute. Then it's going to go up to 61, 62, 59, 58, 64, 60, and it's going to kind of go all over the scale. That's actually a really, really good thing. As we'd said, a high HRV or heart rate variability is indicative of strong parasympathetic activity. Your parasympathetic nervous system is your like rest and digest. So the more relaxed you are, the higher parasympathetic activity you have. On the opposite end of things, the higher the sympathetic activity, the more neural drive you have, the more kind of like anxious and like ready to go you are. That means the more stressed you are. So if your heart rate variability is very, very low, that's indicative of strong sympathetic activity, meaning you're stressed out and you're not really ready to push for a very hard session. So it is important to note here that when you're looking at your heart rate variability, if you are measuring via a Whoop, an Oura Ring, the HRV for a training app, or like any of the other apps and devices out there, it's really important to look at like your 1 week, your 2 week, and your month long trajectories, not like hour to hour, day to day, but more of like look at your 7-day, look at your maybe 14-day, and look at your 30-day. And if you see sudden drops of around 10 to 20% below your 1 week baseline, it means you're going through insufficient recovery. And that's okay. Maybe you've had a really stressful week at home and or at work, or you just ran like a half marathon or a full marathon. You're like, oh, my heart rate variability is tanking. That just means you need to eat more, you need to sleep more, you need to chillax a little bit. So heart rate variability is a wonderful objective measurement of, are you recovering? Are you ready to continue pushing hard for your next session? Can you continue to build throughout your mesocycle? Yes, or if not, no, you take a couple of days off or a deload and you're all good. The second objective tool that we can use is circadian training and sleep timing. So if you've ever heard of the circadian rhythm before, as I talked about before, we are very much in this Milky Way galaxy hooked up to both the sun as well as the moon. When the sun is up, serotonin is up. It is happy. It is there to make us feel excited and happy and awake. And then at night, melatonin is on the rise, and it's supposed to make us feel a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more sleepy. This is awesome. This is called our circadian rhythm. So we can go through this thing called circadian misalignment. And this typically happens when we like train at odd hours and our schedule is really, really funky, like that of doctors, nurses, PAs, as we said before, who might do like a 12-hour day shift, a 12-hour night shift, day off, 24-hour shift, another night shift. This can really throw off your circadian rhythm, again, your circadian misalignment. This can also really impair your performance and recovery. We are naturally strongest in the afternoon to early evening hours, around 1 to 7 p.m. such that our peak in core body temperature does occur between 1 and 7 p.m. And this is great for muscle elasticity and oxygen uptake. Further on this, our strength and power output is also highest in this period of time, which means increases in motor unit recruitment. If you're trying to hit a leg press or a squat or a deadlift or an overhead press PR, 1 to 7 p.m. is going to do that. Third, in this period of time, reaction time and coordination improve, which is great for all of you athletes out there. And accordingly, all of this taken together, your RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, is just lower, as well as your injury risk. So if you can work out between 1 and 7 p.m., that is your physiological ideal time to work out. And also, if you can eat at the same time of day just for adherence and habit building, that is even better. But again, I know everyone's schedule is going to be different. You're going to say, oh, you don't know me because I got to get the kids and yada, yada, yada. Excuse, whatever. Just make sure to train every time of day. Just make sure to train, if you can, at around the same time of day every day, as well as focusing your eating at those times as well. If you know you can only get to the gym at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 4 p.m. or 11 p.m., then do that every single solitary day. And as we said, positive, healthy habit building increases, as does adherence. And lastly, on this, if you want to train your circadian rhythm a little bit better and get your sleep timing and your eating timing down as well, try to avoid late night intense training. Again, if you have a busy schedule and you can only train at night, okay, so be it. But just try to go easy on the pre-workouts and the caffeine before your workouts. I'm hoping that most of you watching this channel, because you're somewhat decently interested in the exercise science and the actual research, know not to take huge amounts of pre-workout right before you do like a 45-minute Planet Fitness session when you're on your phone the entire time anyway. Pre-workout supplements are all dangerous for you. It doesn't matter, oh, what about Olani? Oh, what about Celsius? And it's like, no, like every pre-workout supplement is not good for you. What is good for you? Water, milk, cocoa beans, so regular coffee, tea leaves, if there was like a little bit of caffeinated tea, those are completely fine. Water, milk, tea, coffee, but any type of pre-workout supplement is going to be dangerous in some form or another. They're going to cause some sort of arrhythmia, which is going to be bad, obviously. So taken together, circadian training and sleep timing, try and train at the same time of day, try and eat the same time of day, avoid late night intense workouts, and chillax with the pre-workout supplements. Awesome. So now on to some underrated fixes that could actually work if you are at that stalled place, that plateau. Number one, some natural sources. Get some sunlight. And I know Huberman has some crazy protocols for how many minutes you have to let your eyes be in the sun. Just get outside into the sun in the morning to afternoon hours, obviously when the sun is coming up and it's at its peak brightness. Going outside when it's completely dark isn't going to give you vitamin D. It's not going to give you sunshine. So anytime in the morning to early afternoon, even for 10, 20, 30 minutes, that's completely fine. Second, have your post-workout carbohydrates as well as your protein to enhance recovery. We had said in one of the last videos that I just recorded, which you can now go see on my channel, that the best athletes, they eat around 1 to 2 hours before their workout and 1 to 2 hours after their workout. We're going to have some bit of muscle protein breakdown or just muscle breakdown in that workout period, and that's completely fine. And we can mitigate the extent of the breakdown and also decrease the recovery time if we have protein before and after. That's protein. Also, during this workout, we are also going to be tapping out a lot of the glycogen stores that we have in our body. So a lot of the stored carbohydrates in our liver and our skeletal muscles. So if we preload and then afterload our workouts with carbohydrates, we can also mitigate that hypoglycemic crash. So if you're looking to recover from your sessions a lot more quickly and efficiently, have your pre and your post-workout carbohydrates. And lastly, on underrated fixes that actually work is going to be walks and zone 2 cardio for active recovery and parasympathetic rebound, respectively. Yes, I know I take some shots at trying to get in 10,000 steps per day, but in general, walking is going to be one of the best remedies for everything, from like mental stress to physical overexertion, not overtraining, but overreaching. If you feel like you're getting sick, just going outside and taking a walk for 10, 20 minutes, 2, 3, 4 times a day is phenomenal. Again, walking for most of us isn't going to be super, super taxing. So it is a form of active cardio and an even better way to continue burning off calories. So awesome. And then next, with the zone 2 cardio specifically, so walking is going to be around zone 1, and then zone 2 could be like a little bit of a run, a jog, stair-stepping cycling at a lower intensity around, I think it's like 60 to 75% of your max heart rate. This is going to increase your mitochondrial density, your capillary density, your VO2 max, your cardiorespiratory endurance, your musculoskeletal fitness. Zone 2 cardio is going to be an awesome way to not only fuel very intense focus sessions, but also help you recover from them. So if you want to be a better strength athlete, which I made an episode on this, you should do your cardio. Awesome. So I made a little bit of a checklist here on overtraining versus under-recovering. So a lot of the time, you're not actually overreaching or overtraining. You're just under-recovering. So as I'd said before, anyone can recover from a marathon or an ultramarathon given a long enough time horizon. You could even do this in the gym as well. Anytime that you want to do 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets, give yourself a little bit extra time to recover. I know I only do full body training, and I try and do this like 4 or 5, maybe 6 days a week. And I'll rock and roll with the compound movements to start off with like a leg press or a squat. Then I'll go for either a row or a pull down, and then either like an incline press or a flat press before I go on to my isolations. And you can do a lot of the isolation movements in like drop set or superset form because they're pretty easy, like bicep curls, tricep extensions, like they're tiny enough muscle groups where you can constantly go. But if you're trying to do these large muscle groups like the hamstrings and glutes, the posterior chain muscles, you're trying to do the quads, the chest, the back, they get really, really tiring. So as I go throughout my mesocycle and I start out with 3 sets per exercise to 4 to 5 to 6, sometimes I just need a little bit more recovery time. So I can get away with 45 seconds rest between my first 2 or 3 sets, but then I also need like 1 minute and then 1:15 and then 1:30, 1 minute and 30 seconds rest in between sets to just recover. And then the workout may have taken an extra 15, 20 minutes, but I did way more volume. So going back to that point of you're not overtraining, you're just under recovering. You might just need a little bit more time to sleep, to breathe, to take some walks. It's completely fine. Some red flags, if you are sort of overreaching, under-recovering, number 1 is going to be drops in motivation. If you're completely shivering at the idea of like going to the gym and picking up a dumbbell or lacing up your running shoes and going out for a run, you're probably under-recovered. Second, if you're getting poor and restless sleep, you're probably under-recovered. I know I always felt this way after ultra marathons, anything 50 miles and over. I actually wouldn't sleep that well that night despite being exhausted because my sympathetic activity is so high and my heart rate variability is so low, and I could like never sleep. That goes into number 3, which is restlessness. Number 4, heart rate variability dips. We know if the heart rate variability drops below 10 or 20% below baseline, you're not recovering. And then lastly on the red flags is just stalled progress. And if you're not as strong as you were a couple weeks ago, if you're not as fast as you were, if you've plateaued or even started to decrease in your performance, that's okay. You just need a little bit of recovery time. And as we had said, in order to fix these root causes, we could do things like lifestyle interventions just by sleeping a little bit more, eating a little bit more, drinking a little bit more, taking more walks, and decreasing the stress you have at home and at work. Chill out. Things are going to be okay. Just give yourself a little bit of space and time. Alrighty, your recovery priorities checklist. Number 1, sleep 7 to 9 hours. Make it a habit. Make it a positive habit. Habit formation takes like 60 to 66 days. Make sure to sleep 7 to 9 hours. Number 2, train at consistent times every single day. As we know, consistency wins, but only when you make it work. So get to the gym, lace up your running shoes every single time, around the exact same time every single day. Number 3, monitor heart rate variability or subjective readiness. Are you ready to rock? Are you not ready to rock? I personally do not look at HRV. I'd be way too lazy to do that. So I just ask myself, how do I feel during this warm-up? Am I ready to push today for a nice tempo or interval run, or do I hold back? Number 4, use carbs, protein, hydration, and sunlight strategically. I always joke around with my students, the best way to live a healthy life is to drink a protein shake while taking a walk on the beach. You're getting your exercise, you're getting your vitamin D from the sun and from the milk, and all the protein that you need. Awesome. And lastly, on your recovery priorities checklist, number 5, program true deloads every 4 to 6 weeks. If you're consistently building up through your mesocycle and you're increasing the volume and the intensity of your training, at a certain point you're going to kind of break. And that's going to be okay, because that's when you take a deload week, which I'm going to make a video on later on today about. Awesome. Let's land this plane. TLDR, recovery isn't passive. It is something that you have to build into your plan. If it means setting a timer on your phone to tell you when to go to sleep or when to meditate, do that, because I personally do that because I'm wired with energy all day and I have to recover. Number 2, stop guessing and start tracking. Look at your HRV, look at your subjective readiness scores, look at your RPE, look at the weights that you're using, look at your running splits, look at your HRV. You need to get an idea of where you are if you want to get out of that plateau and continue to progress. Number 3, watch any of my videos on when to eat, how much to eat, the quality of food to eat, and how to train zone 2, because that all goes into, you see this whole holistic approach I'm trying to build with my channel, like the nutrition, the training, the recovery, it all goes into you being a healthier and stronger, better performance athlete for longevity purposes. And lastly, subscribe for the most up-to-date science. This is only the most up-to-date stuff that I put on here, as well as my Instagram, my podcast, and my Substack. So please like, share, and subscribe to all of those. And as always, consistency wins, and it is about that time of day for me to go do my workout. I am feeling pretty good this morning, so I think I'm going to do an interval run. I hope you will as well. And with that, I'll catch you all in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.